Yo, what's going on, guys? Coltamush back at it with a $1,500 full setup gaming PC build. This is a SKYLAKE PC build, and a lot of you guys have been requesting me to do some higher end PC build, and a lot of you guys have also been requesting me to do some SKYLAKE builds, so I thought, hey, let's do this, let's kill two birds with one stone. So let's get right into this with the CPU of the build. I went with the Intel Core i5-6600K 3.5GHz quad-core processor. The Core i5-6600K is $240, and I know that's kind of steep for an i5, and in a $1,500 build, a lot of you guys would probably prefer an i7-6700K. Well, when you do one of these full setup builds and it includes the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, and the OS, it's kind of hard to fit in an i7. Still, the i5-6600K is going to be a great CPU for gaming. Yeah, if you're going to do a lot of video editing, rendering, and things like that, you probably want to go with an i7, but strictly for gaming, the 6600K is a beast. And one thing I actually like about the SKYLAKE CPUs is that they're very overclockable. Being that it's a Case-Series CPU, you definitely want to pick up a CPU cooler. Even something like the Cooler Master Hyper 212 is going to let you do some light overclocking. But these days, the Core i5 is just one of the best CPUs on the market for gaming, and price to performance, it really doesn't get much better than this. All the latest games, The Witcher 3, Metal Gear Solid 5, all of those games, upcoming games like Star Wars Battlefront, Fallout 4, paired with a good GPU, the i5-6600K does really well. For the motherboard, I went with the Gigabyte GA-Z170X-Gaming 3 ATX LGA1151 motherboard. This is an LGA1151 board, obviously on the Intel Z170 chipset. It's got 4 RAM slots up to DDR4 3200 and up to 64GB of memory. It's got RAID support, Crossfire support, SLI support, 3 SATA Express ports, and onboard USB 3 headers. These Z170 boards are pretty expensive. This Gigabyte board comes in the market at around $140, which is kind of steep. But this one's really high quality, and it comes in a really nice black and red color scheme. That goes really well with the build. So $140 for this motherboard is kind of steep, but it's not all too bad. It's got a lot of nice features, and Gigabyte motherboards always have a good warranty policy as well, and they just have a good track record in general with their motherboard. For memory, I went with Kingston HyperX Fury Black 8GB, 24GB sticks running at DDR4 2133 memory. DDR4 RAM is obviously more expensive than DDR3 RAM. This DDR4 kit of RAM is $60. Some of you guys might be wondering why I didn't go with the 16GB configuration in a build of this budget. 16GB for $100 I just don't think is really a necessity. But like I said, if you are doing a lot of video editing, live streaming, and rendering, I would probably get an i7-6700K and probably get 16GB of RAM as well. Since this is primarily a gaming build, I think getting the Kingston HyperX 8GB is perfectly fine. And to be honest, $60 for DDR4 RAM isn't that bad considering probably 6 to 8 months ago we were probably paying that for DDR3 RAM. And as far as getting 16GB, that's always an upgrade you can make in the future since the motherboard does have 4 RAM slots. So this HyperX Fury Black for $60 is a pretty good option. For storage, starting things off with mechanical drive, I went with the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB. You still want a mechanical drive even in a build of a budget like this. And SSD these days, it's still just not enough. You want to get that mass storage that the Caviar Blue is going to offer for only $50. And if you are buying a build that's $1,500, you're probably the kind of guy that likes to play the newest releases, and the newest releases range from 40GB, 50GB, sometimes even higher than that with DLC and those kinds of things. And a terabyte is only $50, so I think it's just something every build should have. But a build of this budget should also have an SSD. That's where the Samsung 850 EVO-Series 250GB solid-state drive comes in. And this 250GB SSD is only $90, and I seem to mention this whenever I talk about SSDs. 2 years ago, I picked up my Samsung 840 series 120GB SSD, and it was $140. Now seeing that people are picking up Samsung 850 series 250GB SSDs for $90 makes me pretty salty, but good on you guys for waiting it out. 250GB is a decent amount of storage. You're gonna put your OS on there, and you can store some games. I don't think 250GB is enough to just go with an SSD, since like I said, a lot of these games these days are 40 to 50GB, but if you're the kind of guy that does just download one game, beats it, then deletes it, maybe eliminate the mechanical drive. I just think it's a better option to get an SSD and a mechanical drive, but I'll leave that decision up to you guys. Moving on to the video card, I went with the MSI Radeon R9 390 8GB video card. This GPU is $320 and it's an absolute beast. You're gonna be able to play any game that comes out these days. The Witcher 3, Dying Light, Battlefield, Star Wars Battlefront, Fallout 4, all those games at really good settings and really good frame rates. And when I say really good settings and really good frame rates, you're gonna be playing The Witcher 3 at over 60 frames per second. Games like Fallout 4, Star Wars Battlefront, all those kinds of games maxed out or near maxed out at 60 FPS or above. Now I say near maxed out for some games because there's always anomalies out there that just about nothing can run at 60 FPS. Look at a game like DayZ Standalone. That game is in early access. Even if you have the beefiest rig in the world, it's not gonna run it perfectly. But for the most part, the R9 390 is going to do a really good job on all the newest games, all the highest end games. Crysis, Dying Light, Witcher, all those kinds of games are going to be great on the R9 390, and this one has a good cooler as well, so if you want even more performance out of it, overclock the hell out of it as well. And it's got a monstrous 8GB of video buffer, which is just ridiculous. You don't even need that much, but hey, they give it to you, so just take it. And honestly, sometimes I do play it off like that 8GB doesn't matter, but more and more we are seeing more games using 4GB. And who's to say a year from now, some games are going to take 6GB to even max out at 1080p. So having that 8GB is definitely not bad at all. For the power supply, I went with the Rosewill Hive 750 watt 80 plus bronze certified semi-modular power supply for $80. It's a 750 watt power supply, so you are going to be able to go for a crossfire configuration in the future if you want to. I'm not a big fan of crossfire SLI, but the option is open. And it's semi-modular, so that's going to keep cable management a breeze. And for $80, getting a 750 watt power supply from Rosewill that's semi-modular is definitely a good deal. Finally, for the case, I went with the NZXT S340 Black ATX mid-tower case for $60. The NZXT S340 is pretty much like Old Faithful. It's just a fantastic case that you can pretty much recommend in any build ranging from $700 to $1,000 to $1,500. It's just fantastic. I'm not a big fan of spending north of $100 on a case. At the end of the day, I want a case that's going to get the job done, but that's not going to be overly expensive. And the NZXT S340 for $60 is freaking fantastic. Aesthetically, it looks great. It's got a great side window, and this black one also goes really well with the color scheme of the build. So I just think the S340 is fantastic, and the reviews definitely back it up. Pretty much everyone that's picked one up has said really good things about it. You just really can't go wrong with the S340. Moving on to peripherals, starting off with a monitor, and I really debated whether I'm going with a 1080p monitor or a 1440p monitor. At the end of the day, I had to go with a 1080p monitor since 1440p was just a bit too expensive, and I think most gamers these days that are buying a new gaming PC are honestly looking to play at 1080p, unless you're the super enthusiast that's spending $2,000 or $2,500 on their gaming PC. So for the monitor, I went with the Asus VS239H-P 23-inch 1920 by 1080 IPS monitor. So this is around $140, and like I said, it's 1080p, which is still a very good resolution. 1080p looks great, and the R9 390 is definitely going to excel at 1080p gaming. If you were playing games at 1440p, some games you would have to lower the settings a tad. 1080p is just a lot less intensive on your GPU, and a 1080p monitor is $140. And in the future, you could always buy a 1440p monitor, and then you can use this 1080p monitor as a secondary monitor, which is actually what happened to me. But these days, I still end up playing games at 1080p since my GTX 970 just can't game really well at 1440p on a lot of the higher end games. This monitor itself, as far as connections go, has an HDMI port, a D-sub port, and a DVI-D port. And from my experience, all the Asus monitors I have a 23-inch Asus monitor, I have a 21.5-inch monitor, and I have a 27-inch 1440p monitor from Asus, and they've all worked fantastically for me, so expect the same kind of thing when you pick this monitor up. Moving on to keyboard and mouse, starting off with the keyboard, I went with the Logitech G710 wired gaming keyboard for $80. This is the Cherry MX Brown available for $80, and the Cherry MX Blue is available for $100. Now, I didn't think most of you guys wanted to spend north of $100 on a keyboard, so I strayed away from something like the Corsair Case-70, so I decided on the Logitech G710 Plus instead. $80 seemed like a reasonable amount that most of you guys with a $1,500 budget would spend on a keyboard, and this one is still very good. It has great reviews on Amazon. It has adjustable lighting, 6 programmable keys, and a lot of nice features that you would expect from a keyboard at this price range. But in my opinion, $80 for a decent mechanical keyboard was the right option here. Finally, for the mouse, I went with the Corsair M65 RGB gaming mouse. This is a $60 mouse, and once again, just like the keyboard, I didn't want to spend north of $70 on a mouse since I don't think most of you guys want to do that. So this Corsair M65 is really nice. This mouse aesthetically also looks really great. This is the kind of mouse you bring a friend over that isn't a PC gamer, and then they just look at the mouse and they're like, dude, what are you doing? But it's a really nice mouse with an 8200 DPI, 8 programmable buttons that you guys can configure yourself, and all in all, it's a really nice mouse from Corsair, and this mouse also has really good reviews on Amazon. And finally, for the operating system, I went with a copy of Windows 10. This is a legit copy, not a CD key from G2A. I figured if you guys have a budget of $1,500, you probably want a completely valid copy. Yes, it is $90, but hey, for an operating system, honestly, it's not the craziest thing in the world. You can go with Windows 8 or Windows 7. I believe they still sell Windows 7. So if you want one of those two, you can get that as well. I think you should just get Windows 10, get the latest version. And yeah, you know, just pay the $90 and pick up Windows 10. It's expensive, but whatever. For a gaming PC, you kind of need it. You don't want to be running Linux, especially for games these days. So that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. I know you guys want me to do more full setups, and I will get around to them. They just take a little bit more time to do. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, dislike the video if you didn't, and comment on your requests for future videos. And as always, guys, have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.